Tonight on Behind the Details with Chelsea, we sit down with special guest Markus Kleis from Meguiar's. If you've ever detailed a car before, chances are you've used a Meguiar's product in the past. Meguiar's has been a staple in the detailing industry for over a century, blending tradition with innovation. In this episode, we're diving into some of the innovative products that they've created, share with you some tips on how to get the most use out of them, and discuss what's on the horizon for Meguiar's. So buckle up, because this is an episode you're not going to want to miss. Let's go ahead and get started with the show. We are so excited for this episode. I've been stoked for this episode since we officially confirmed it. You and I have been talking about doing this episode for a couple of months.
I think it's been a couple of years.
It's quite possible. But honestly, when you were like, I'm not sure, and then you asked, and it came to fruition. I manifested it into existence. And this has been a conversation that I've been looking forward to having with you. This is actually the first time that we're ever talking face to face. We've been messaging for years. Anytime I had a question about a product, you've always been the person that I've reached out to. So thank you for always being available, and especially tonight for being available to kind of answer all you guys' questions who are watching. We do have a few people already watching. Hopefully we're going to have a ton of questions that we're going to answer for you guys. So if you do have questions for Markus, make sure you post your questions in the chat. But Markus, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I mean, I think we literally did start talking about doing this almost 2 years ago. And I think I was at Harbor Freight at one point and we talked about it, and then things just kept on not lining up right. So I am glad that we finally figured it out and that we're able to have this conversation. So.
Well, for those of you that are not familiar, Markus Kleis is as you can see, the product innovation leader with Meguiar's, which is pretty much one of the most recognized detailing brands. I'm pretty confident to say in the world. You guys are international. If you even just Google one of the top detailing brands in the world, Meguiar's pops up. You guys have been around since, literally 1901. It's been over 120 years.
Yeah.
So that's insane. I'm pretty sure you were around when cars were first created.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
That's insane. I was doing some research before the show just to kind of get, antiquated with Meguiar's history. I had no idea it went so far back, and just everything that, as far as that it's been a family business since it started off furniture polish, then switched over to carriages, which that would transition really well with wooden wheels and things like that. But it's just crazy how you guys have stayed so consistent within the market and been able to stay fresh, stay relevant after all of these years. When you think about that, that's probably one of the biggest struggles in today's market with any detailing brand is how do you find something that is going to appeal to this market in such a saturated market? So I think we've got a lot that we can discuss tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's not a lot of companies that stick around more than 100 years. There's kind of like a magic number. I think it is around 100 that a lot of companies fail. And there's a lot of reasons for that, right? I mean, the world changes as we're experiencing with AI and all that. And it's tough to keep a vision that continues forward, right? And makes sense for that long. But I'll say, I think that without question, the magic sauce that has made Meguiar's have that staying power is the people. There are many people at Meguiar's that have been there over 20 years, some of them over 30. So the amount of knowledge and the genuine passion for what we do, you just can't even, you can't go out and buy that, right? It's just people that live car care and have done it authentically in their personal lives and their professional lives for decades on end. And so I think that's our secret sauce. When you look at some of the other brands that, share the space with us, they're still figuring it out, right? Or maybe they have some other motivations here and there. But I think that's really the true north for Meguiar's is that passion.
Yeah. I mean, Barry Meguiar is probably one of those bucket list people for me that I hope to meet. But what's it like working with him?
So Barry was, when I first got involved with Meguiar. So my start officially was not as an employee, but I was running Meguiar's Online, which was the forum, where the forum thing, that concept that's kind of died, back in the day before social media took over. And so at that time, I was kind of a contractor, but I would go pop in at the office from time to time or attend classes, and get to see him. And the guy you see when you see a video of Barry Meguiar, that's the guy you get in real life. I mean, I don't know how he has that much energy. Like, I hope I have half his energy, when I'm 80 years old. Like, that guy just goes and goes and goes. And, I've had the opportunity to go to his house, when he lived here in Orange County, and then also out in Arizona at his new place. And it's just so much fun to sit and talk with somebody who is authentically a car guy. I mean, you can't be more authentically into cars and that scene than Barry Meguiar. The guy genuinely bleeds it. It's just fascinating, and you just always learn something talking with him.
No, I hope to meet him one day. But you were with Meguiar's for years, and then you left for a little bit. In fact, Steve had this comment: "Is this the legendary Meguiar / Harbor Freight genius that I've heard of?" How long were you at Harbor Freight, and what made you leave Meguiar's?
So I was originally, when I came on as an employee at Meguiar's, I was there about 4 years, and I was running the Meguiar's Pro and Marine portfolios as the product manager. And honestly, I never even thought about leaving. I thought for sure I would be there my whole career. The thought, I never looked, I wasn't shopping, I didn't update my resume, nothing. And I was getting hounded by headhunters. And I usually would just not even respond to them. But one of the guys was extremely persistent. And he's like, just have a conversation with me. So I ended up doing that. And, I think it was meant to be, because when I heard about Harbor Freight and really started to kind of understand what they were doing to change, it was very interesting to me, because I had an opportunity to drive product development for Pro and Marine, but that's mostly chemicals at that time at Meguiar's. Whereas the job at Harbor Freight was to kind of oversee their whole auto care department, if you will. And it was going to be from both a product development standpoint as well as marketing and other aspects of business. And I know obviously they're doing mostly tools and accessories. And so for me, I saw that as an opportunity to kind of round out my knowledge and my skill set, because those were my weak points. So I went in there just really wanting to learn, how to develop polishers, how to develop all kinds of power tools. I was on the power tools team officially. And then I just kind of was in charge of all the auto care. So all their new towels, their new pads that have recently launched. There's a bunch more coming that I was involved with that hasn't hit the market quite yet, but I think will be in about the next 6 or 9 months. New polishers. They're going to be a disruptive force. I mean, they already are.
Yeah.
If people knew how big Harbor Freight was, it's incredible. I mean, it was one of the most impressive operations I've ever read about in business. It's one of a kind. They're a soup to nuts, start to finish, top to bottom, complete machine, and they're bringing in experts from top brands. I mean, they brought people in from Snap-on, from Lincoln Electric, from every brand you can think of, and they have hundreds, over 200 engineers in-house, and they're developing their own products. It's not the Harbor Freight that your dad knew. It's kind of the saying, right?
So what would be your 3, like, go out and buy them today from Harbor Freight tools that you would say for detailers?
Well, okay. So I think the Grant 10-pack of towels, the 350 GSM edgeless towels, they're like a neon yellowy green and purple, half and half. Those are phenomenal towels. They go on sale sometimes for like $5-6 for a 10-pack of those. I mean, I still use a lot of those towels at home because I had a bunch, obviously, from when I was there. Other than that, I would say, the bucket insert is a great bang for the buck for $10 or less. The Grant's Dirt Guard. I did a lot of work on that. It's actually patented, believe it or not. And its ability to go in both 3.5 and 5 gallon buckets. And I don't know if people know this, but the diameter of the bucket is different from the usual detailing 3.5 gallon bucket. It's wider than a normal 5 gallon. So a lot of those bucket inserts will get stuck in one bucket, or it has too much of a gap. So you get that leakage of all that dirt coming back up. So
Okay.
that one, we engineered it to be at the perfect height where it was the same diameter in either a 3.5 or a 5 gallon bucket. I know it's like a nerdy thing, but
That's why you do what you do, though.
yeah, yeah. And then there was a lot of design that went into like the conical aspect of how it filters down but not back up. And then also big enough holes for your fingers. A lot of the ones out there, like you can't pull it out of the bucket, that when they're all slimy, like you just can't get it
Yeah.
out. So those were kind of silly details, but I like that one. Polisher wise, there's a polisher coming that's not out yet.
Oh.
And I can't say too much other than nobody's taken the approach that we did. And it is awesome. It's a beast. It's going to overpower, I think, anything on the market for what it does.
Dual
And
action, you think, or rotary?
I'll say that. Yeah, it's going to be a dual action,
Okay.
but there's something about it that we took a different approach than every other tool company out there.
I'm pretty sure
And
Jamie's gonna have to buy that one too.
yeah, I'll just say that like I will be buying it the day it's available because I had to give all my prototypes back when I left, which made me very sad
Oh my
because
gosh.
it
Now
was
I'm
my
like
favorite.
really curious. Like, are we talking like maybe this year?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find out, but I think it is probably this year. My guess is that it should be ready by the end of this calendar year, and I would guess that we'll hear about it at this SEMA. Would be my guess.
All right. I'm gonna assume I can assume that with Harbor Freight, it's probably gonna be a little bit more on the affordable side.
Yes, yes. So
Hopefully, we've got the ergonomics of like a good G15 or something like that. So
that's the other thing. So we did an
battery
incredible
powered, that
amount of
would be
work.
sweet.
Yeah, like I'm telling you, by the end of probably mid-year next year, I think they'll have at least another half a dozen polishers
That's
that
awesome.
hit the market. And we had an industrial designer in-house, very talented gentleman, as well as experts that have been at major tool companies in the past. And we put so much time into the ergonomics of these tools. I believe that the ergonomics on those tools that are coming will be better than some of the biggest names in the space that are
Those
dedicated.
are big words there, Marcus.
I know, but I mean, there were patents
I
involved.
mean, we're talking Rupes, we're talking Flex, we're talking Grios.
Okay, look, here's
China's
my
gonna be
approach.
like, challenge accepted, you know?
Here's my approach when I make something. I set out and say, okay, what's on the market today? What does everyone like that's on the market? And what are the things that people commonly say they would like to be better about what's on
Mm,
the market, right? And I try
cheap.
and say, okay, challenge accepted. What can I find a way to make a better version of what's out on the market today? And now, if you look at Harbor Freight historically, if we're honest, they weren't exactly known for innovation. They're more known for value. They bring products that
Yeah.
are similar to what's out there, but at a crazy price. Um, I had to do a lot of fighting to like get them to take a risk and create things that don't exist, that were totally innovative. But I was confident would be a great tool, for a detailer. I had to say like, look, like just trust me on this, and
Mm.
sometimes it took a little extra work to get that approval because it was risky. But look at their new pads, for example. Have you seen the new system that they launched of the grants pads?
I haven't actually.
Okay, so that's an interesting. We did things a little bit differently, right? Historically, if we're all honest, Harbor Freight's pads do not have a good reputation. The adhesive would fail under heavy heat, or sometimes the solvent soaking through from compounds could break it down, and so they didn't have the best durability, right? We reinvented, and instead of having 4 or 5 brands of pads, it's one brand, it's one line. They consolidated the way they name the pads. So if it says it's a 3-inch pad, which they have 3-inch pads now, which is pretty awesome, that means it fits a tool with a 3-inch backing plate. Because you know how some brands, they name it
Yeah,
by the
they're
face of the
slightly off
pad?
or slightly over.
Yeah, and some are by the face, some are by the back. And it's just very hard to know what's what. So we created a whole new line, and we went from over 30 pads to, I believe the final number was 15 or 16 SKUs. So like half the number of SKUs, but it actually increased the applications because they didn't have 3-inch before. So we added 3-inch, we added microfiber pads, and then they also we created a really cool, it's actually out now. You can see it on the Harbor Freight website, but a rotary pad that uses a stiff backing with a laser cut on the back. So you know how they call rotaries, like they're all 7-inch rotaries.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of them use a 5-inch hook and loop, some a 6, some actually 7. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very confusing to know what size pads to get. So we created one where you can actually fit a 7-inch true backing plate on it, but it also has a laser cut circle to perfectly center a 6-inch. And it's a stiffer backing, so even with the overhang, it still functions really well. So that was kind of cool. It's a great example of innovation at Harbor Freight that was kind of different, than anything out there.
So if you had to pick a polisher that they have now in stock, not the one that we're already salivating over in the future, what
Yeah,
would your go-to DA polisher be from Harbor Freight?
I think the most balanced one and the one that I lean for the most is that Hercules force rotation tool. I got involved with that on the final 6 or so months of development, and we made a lot of upgrades. It comes with top tier Mobil 1 grease, high temp grease. The bearings were improved. It really is a workhorse and some people say it's even better than the Flex 3401.
The Flex 3401 was too much of a workhorse for me.
Yeah,
Like I got rid of it just because I didn't want to have to like retrain my brain with the
yeah,
counter rotation. It was just like, like it just
that was
wanted to walk on
yeah,
me, and I'm like, I can't. It
that was
worked
the
really
one
well. It
thing.
just I was used to my typical
Yep.
rotation.
Yep. No, and I got involved with that Hercules tool when it was too late because they did the same thing on the direction.
Mm,
And I tried to change it, but they were like, it's going to delay it a year. And I was like, oh. So maybe in the future you'll see a new version that goes the other way.
cool. Good to know. What would be your go-to compressor at Harbor Freight for a Tornador gun?
So I use the Fortress 27-gallon at home, which is like their quiet one. I think that's the one I went with.
Okay.
And I've had that for I think 2 years or so, and I use that for my Tornador when I'm doing detailing at home.
Well, there you have it, guys. For those of you that are looking for anything to buy from Harbor Freight straight from the man who helped create them, recommendations on what to go and purchase. I don't have any coupon codes for you guys there, so you're on your own with that. But after being at Harbor Freight, what made you come back home to Meguiar's?
Well, I mean, I was really honestly enjoying my time at Harbor Freight. Again, it forced me to grow personally and professionally in a lot of ways. It was tough. I mean, I worked really hard there, like
Yeah, I know.
long hours. It was really hard, but very grateful for it. But I did get a call from some higher ups on the Meguiar side that basically asked to
We
kind of
miss
meet.
you.
And yeah, and so we went and grabbed dinner and had some conversations, and kind of one thing led to the next, and there were some organizational changes at Meguiar's, and they created a whole new role, which is what is my role now, which is, what is it, I don't even know. It's a global portfolio innovation leader. Yeah, I think is officially the title, something like that. And basically what it is my job is literally just to work with all the product managers and all the scientists and drive the kind of the future of all the new products for the whole brand. So I mean, how do you not take that job, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's dream job. So they suckered me back in.
So part of your job at Meguiar's, obviously you have your hand, I'm assuming, in a lot of projects on a
Oh
day-to-day
yeah.
basis. So kind of walk me through, if you can, like what does a product being developed at Meguiar's look like?
Sure. I would say, first of all, there's multiple paths that products can go through. So sometimes we set out and say, hey, let's try and create a product that does X. We want a high-end leather cleaner that's out of a spray bottle. Sometimes you start off with something like that. You take it to the lab and say, these are the attributes I'm looking for. This is kind of the price point we need to hit. Here's what we're looking at, and then they'll get to work, and then I get to go back and forth kind of testing and asking for tweaks. Sometimes the lab will come to us and say, hey, we've been working with these new materials or this new technology. Does this seem interesting to you? Why don't you play with this technology and tell me if there's anything you think you could work for. So sometimes it comes from the other direction, right? And sometimes we set out to do one thing and you just, it's like, there's a term for that, which I can't think of, but you just happenstance end up somewhere totally different. Hybrid ceramic wax, that blue original hybrid ceramic wax that started the whole hybrid claim and all that good stuff, that was supposed to be wash and wax. So that, yeah, I know.
That would have been an awful wash and wax.
I know. Well, it started. So the chemist came to me and said, hey, we want to do a wash and wax that really leaves wax. What do you think of it? And I tried it, and there's just trade-offs, as you know, like you're mixing two competing concepts with a wash and wax. It's a crazy concept, right? And we played around and played around and played around, and ended up just messing around with stuff in different weird ways. I love doing that. I love to take things and use it totally differently than what the chemist says. So I did, and I put it in a spray bottle, and we started playing with it, and one thing led to the next, and then we went down a different path, and it ended up being one of the most successful product launches we've ever had.
My father-in-law loves that stuff. It's like Tabasco sauce. He puts it on everything.
Yeah.
If he could put it on his interior, he would.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it really depends. But the other thing I would say too is we have typically a freakishly short product development cycle sometimes. So sometimes we will develop a product from start to finish in less than a year. And it's really unheard of the pace that we move at. It speaks volumes to our lab. They're very experienced, and they know what they're doing, and we can give them feedback, and we will sometimes get multiple new versions to test the same day. I've tested sometimes 2 or 3 dozen variants of a formula in one day. So it's a very fast moving process, and our supply chain and all those folks on the back end, those hidden kind of figures that nobody gets to think about or see, they're awesome too. So sometimes it's less than a year, and sometimes it's 5 years. 888, that technology, that was a project that I started in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah. And it
was only released, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah. And it's a great example of, there's stuff that people don't realize. For example, that product was started because we did not, as an organization, want to use those persistent chemicals, which are, becoming likely going to be banned kind of around the world, that are in a lot
PFAs.
Yeah, exactly. So, the fluorochemistry that, has potential health risk that's out there, that's the secret sauce for, at the time, was in basically every coating.
Yeah.
At least the durable ones. And we set out to create something in-house from scratch that was able to do everything that those other guys could do, but without that. And
so M888 is PFA free?
Oh yeah.
Sweet.
100%. Yeah. And, so obviously if anyone's used it, 888 feels different. It behaves differently. It's 100% active. Other companies talk about high solids coatings. 100% of what is in that bottle is capable of forming into the final coating. 100%.
That explains a lot on why my coating went bad. There was literally the seal wasn't seated just right. And it was like syrup coming out of the bottle because it started to cure.
Was plugged. Yeah. And in the very first batch, and honestly, that product, it had a rough launch because when they did that first batch, they didn't torque some down enough, and then the next batch they went too far, and it kind of cracked the seals on some. And so the first experience or two that some people might have had might not have been anywhere near optimal. And which I understand, like if you try it and it doesn't work for you, you may not try it again. But it's very unfortunate because the good stuff, when it's made right and sealed right, it's really
even though mine was a bad seal. Yeah. That coating, there's no issues with the coating. It just made the application a bugger. I was like, why is this so freaking grabby? But the coating to this day looks amazing on my car. So that's a credit to the high actives within it.
Right. 100%. I mean, 100% actives and no fluorochemistry. So that's a tall order to do something like that. And it works on paint, works on PPF, on vinyl. You can go over plastic with it. It's unbelievably versatile. And then the fact that you can wipe off a high spot a day later is crazy.
Yeah. So Steve says, wait, how does that work? Don't most coatings have a solvent to deliver the resin?
Sure. So basically, what I can share would be the solvent that helps deliver it is a type of solvent that can also become part of the matrix of the coating itself. So it is both a diluent and helps to deliver it and make it liquid, and that's what also kind of gives you this longer work time. Is It's a slow evaporating solvent, so it's both an oil and a solvent and capable of being part of the coating matrix. So it kind of wears many hats, and it's a different approach. The other thing is, like, we follow the whatever the most stringent VOC, or for the people that don't know, like volatile organic compounds, like basically like emissions rules. There are some like really tiny government agencies that most brands just ignore. We follow their lowest common denominator of those rules, and so our solvent loading had to be very low for that category, and that was why we kind of did a different type of chemistry to make sure it was legally compliant everywhere.
We'll talk a little bit more about M888 because that's definitely, I think, the fact that Meguiar's waited so long to put out a coating, it says they saw something unique that they could bring to the market. At least that was my approach because, we know that ceramics and all of that, they're big time buzzwords, especially with the market that you guys seem to cater to.
Yeah,
And that was actually something that I want to bring up a little bit later on, is like kind of educating a customer base that's so large. Like, how do you guys
yeah.
even handle something of that element? But, we're talking about products being developed. What happens though if a product flops? Like, where do those lost products go, and how do you guys decide, let's pull the plug, it's not working, it's not selling? Um, does that feel like one of your children dying,
It
essentially?
it can. Um, you know, Obviously, at this point in time, we've become a huge player. We are the largest brand in the retail space, by a healthy margin. I'll put it that way. And so, we have a lot of scale. We're very large. We do very high volume, and that means that we need to move a lot of product in order for it to kind of hit our metrics. For it to
Hmm.
make sense and be viable. So we usually figure out pretty quickly if a product's going to flop. Our success rate is probably one of, if not the highest, out there in this category in retail, which is why we tend to have the most market share. But it does happen, and when it does happen, like I said, it's usually in the first year if it doesn't land. Sometimes it's because the name. That's another thing. Sometimes you'll have a product. Think about there was a wash that came out. I think it was in 2018 or 19. The Wash Plus was what
Bring
it was
it
called.
back. Bring it back.
So that's a
That
great
was the
example.
best soap ever.
Wash Plus, phenomenal product if you
Sorry, you
actually
just
bought it
triggered
and
me.
used it for the right thing. But the name probably could have been better. The price point was higher. It was a very expensive formula.
Not
The
at
active
Ollie's
rose.
now.
Yeah, I still have hoarded, bottles of Wash Plus.
I
Um,
have 3 bottles that I literally, it's like liquid gold.
yes, yes,
Because when I have customers that didn't want a clay bar treatment, I use
yeah,
that every time
yeah,
because it had just enough abrasive to kind of
yeah,
clean the paint, but not enough to like really scratch it.
yeah.
You guys, I have always said for years that someone needs to bring that back or find like just make your own, just a little bit of polish and a lot of soap,
It
put it
it
together.
was
But I'm sure
awesome
there's
stuff.
way more behind the technology behind that.
Yeah, but it flopped horribly in the market because it cost about, I think it was almost twice as much as like a 48-ounce jug of wash, and it was 24 ounces. And then on top of that, new name and new delivery. So you're putting your car soap on your mitt. That's
Hmm.
too many new things. People generally don't do well with that. If you have more than one new thing in a product, it probably flops in the mass market because consumers, it's just too much education.
Hmm.
So it's usually only one new thing that you can get away with on a fresh concept. But I
If your
hear you.
boss is watching this, please just for the love of God, like figure out a way to brand that or market it and bring it back because that was a detailer's gift to crappy cars.
It was. It honestly was one of the biggest time savers. You could pull off wax with it.
Yeah.
You could knock down a coating if you used it the right way with that. If you did it correctly and you loaded it up and you scrubbed with some vigor, you could use that as a way and skip having to compound down a coating and prep it for like a fresh coat or something like that.
What's the one product, if it's not Wash Plus, from Meguiar's that flopped that was like the biggest heartbreak for you?
Ooh, okay. Yeah, for sure. Hybrid paint coating, the aerosol coating.
Mm. I
Um,
still, if you guys find bottles of that at Ollie's, they're like 9.99, sometimes like 15. Buy them up. That
yeah,
you convinced me on this that it was one of the best wheel coatings out there
yeah,
because it's so easy. High spots, you can get them like a day later, but it
yeah,
lasts 12 to 18 months on wheels.
yeah. It's crazy. And
And
that is another example. Aerosol plus paint equals confusion. People couldn't
mm,
get past it, and the world, the I'll do air quotes, the internet, YouTube, etc. They've decided that a real coating has to come in a tiny little glass bottle, right?
well, it felt very reminiscent to your Ultimate Fast Finish,
Yeah,
which was
unrelated,
another
and
really great product.
yeah,
Really great. But again, like people just couldn't get behind it. It was actually
yeah.
really great for leather.
There
Did
were
you ever
some
try it on
people.
leather?
Yeah, fast finish. Officially, I cannot recommend it for leather. Unofficially, yes, it was fantastic.
No, I mean the spray coating, I think I have 3 or 4 brand new packages because I'm reserving it.
Oh,
But fortunately,
yeah.
the aerosol, it won't go bad.
Yeah, I will say, okay, it does slowly. There's some,
So there is a shelf life, you're saying.
there is shelf life. It's nowhere like a normal coating,
Okay.
because you're not getting air into the
Hmm.
can, right? But there is some catalyst that comes in the formula. So you'll get a little bit less durability, but it will still work. You can still apply it, but maybe you end up with 12 months instead of 18 eventually. I mean, at this point, those cans are like how many years old? They're 4 or 5 years old, right?
Don't bust my bubble. I'm
I
still
know.
gonna like get it.
Honestly, that is easily my favorite product that was commercially unsuccessful. We had too expensive of a package, too much
Yeah,
stuff that came included. It came with the 122 bottle. It came with multiple 16 by 24 towels and
a pretty
applicator.
box.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like 40, $50. And I think there was just too much going on. I'd like to try again at some
Yeah,
point
I
with
totally would.
something like it. But I want to make some improvements, because it's been a while and, we'll see. But I loved that stuff. I still do. I think it was hands down the most underrated coating that's ever been launched. People did not give it enough credit. And the fast finish thing, there's certain people, I won't name names, in our tight little world that spread rumors that it was fast finish.
Yeah.
It in no way was hybrid paint coating
If you
related.
ever used it, you know they were
Yeah,
nowhere near. They smelled
no.
different, they acted different, the hydrophobics were different. Fast finish wasn't near as tight with
No,
beating.
no. Fast finish was awesome stuff, but it was more of a sealant, whereas hybrid
Yeah.
paint coating was actually, this is some insider baseball, the technology that the coating side of hybrid paint coating is actually shared technology with 888. There is way more active in 888, of course.
100%.
Whereas, hybrid paint coating was thin and super, spreadable and all that. 888 shares a lot of that. So if you liked hybrid paint coating and you enjoyed the slickness, the chemical resistance and all that, you can get that and more from 888.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think everyone's loving all these little insider tips. Um, so you guys have a lot of products, and I mean a lot of products, and it feels like you're coming out with new ones, and you don't really retire a ton of the OG ones either that perform really well. So you've got Ultimate line, the hybrid ceramic line, your hot shine, your gold class, and then your professional line. Out of the retail lines, which is your favorite?
Oof. Well, I'd say the one that I use most is hybrid ceramic. I use the detailer very frequently, and then I'll use hybrid ceramic wax, the spray one, as a drying aid. Basically, that's my preferred way of applying it. No extra step, and I'm getting quite a bit of hydrophobic boost from using it. So hybrid ceramic. Now I'm super biased because those were my babies and I created that line. So take it with a grain of salt. But those would be my favorite and most used personally. But ultimate, like I forget sometimes how darn good ultimate
Yeah.
quick wax and ultimate detailer, quick detailer. Like if you haven't tried the new versions, people don't really know that they've been updated in the last couple of years. And sometimes I forget because there's just so many products to choose from.
Mhm.
I'll grab a bottle because it's convenient and be like, dang, this is just stupid easy to use. And it's fantastic. It's just so user friendly. So I'd say Ultimate has some good, winners, in there as well.
Okay. What would you say is like the biggest sleeper within the hybrid ceramic line?
Well, I think the biggest thing that people misunderstand and don't get the most out of is the spray wax,
Okay.
because I think a lot of people try to use it like a normal spray wax, and it's not at all. If like I remember in the beginning, some of the complaints that would come in because they would say, oh, this stuff smeared, it made a mess, I could not get it off. And then we ask them for some pictures. Hey, show us a picture of the bottle. The bottle is empty. They put a whole bottle on their car in one car wash. I'm like, well, I mean, that explains it. Like, I would not want to use that product ever again either, because that's like 5 years of protection you just put on your car. So I would say most people don't read the directions and they don't do the base coat. So if you go into the directions,
Mhm.
we actually updated them like a year after the launch to just be more direct and tell people the first time you use it, you need to do it differently. The first time, wash your car, rinse it while it's still wet. Spray it on and use it like a drying aid and work it into the surface. Then rinse the whole car one more time just to check and see if you missed anything.
Mhm.
And then in that process, you can lightly mist any, weak spots or whatever, and just pressure wash the rest off. And from there on out, as long as you do it every 2 or 3 weeks, you don't have to work it into the paint again. You could just spray it on a wet car and rinse it, and it will spread. But we did a trade off. And this is like one of those things that people, like there was criticism of the product because there's other products out there that will punch through if you have a
Mhm.
hydrophilic
And they'll
surface,
foam.
and they have more solvent. And so they punch through the water if they're standing water, but you trade things off, namely durability or contact angle when you do that. And we wanted hybrid ceramic. When we created hybrid ceramic, the goal was we wanted a product that truly gave you the majority of the attributes of a real ceramic coating, which we don't call hybrid ceramic a coating ever, ever. But we wanted it, that's the hybrid part, right? To give you those same attributes, the slickness, the crazy beading, really effectively that self-cleaning, which is the main thing that we wanted.
Mhm.
And so they're a little nuanced, and you need to apply it a little bit differently. And as if you do that, if you do that extra little step that first time, you then get an easy process down the road, and you can just spray it on your ceramic coated car or on a normal wax car and rinse it off and dry your car, and you're done. And it's as easy as it gets, right?
Yeah. So for a lot of us, I think, we've struggled with some of these new products that Meguiar's has come out with because there's just so many trying to
Yeah.
pick which ones are the best. So, like to those who are used to, their favorites, how do you recommend customers go about buying new ones? Like, and what is the appeal between all of the new stuff that you guys are bringing to market?
So I'd kind of even expand a little bit on what I think you're getting at, which is why so many products.
Hmm.
And I get it. We call it the wall of confusion. When you walk into a
A
retail
Walmart,
store,
yeah,
yeah,
anywhere.
you walk into Walmart, it's like holy mackerel. Like I mean,
Hmm.
you'll see people. I'll go sometimes and creep and watch the public and see how they behave. And I'll watch someone walk in there and they look at it, and you see them shake their head and walk out. And I'll ask them like, hey, why did you walk out without buying anything? And they're like, I don't even know where to begin. There's just too much. So I understand that. It's hard. To your earlier point, you asked like, how do you appeal to all these different types of consumers? Because the people that are listening to this podcast are
Hmm.
not same type of person that goes in and buys, a basic car wash or a basic wax because it's inexpensive, right? The people here, they want the latest and the greatest. They want that tricky technology. They want just, to try fun new stuff. So we have things like hybrid ceramic for people that want that cutting edge. Somebody else just says, hey, I don't want to think. I just want it to always be easy to use, but I want really good performance and I want to just count on that without having to look anything up or watch a video. Ultimate basically does that. Like that's what we treat Ultimate as. You might get a little bit better beating in some hybrid ceramic, but like there's a little nuance to how you apply it. Whereas Ultimate Quick Wax, you can't screw it up. Ultimate Quick Detailer, you can't screw it up, right? And then you have Gold Class, which is a staple that's been around for a long time.
OG. Yep.
OG, right? You've got Carnauba for your waxes.
Cleaner
Some
wax.
people want that, and then a lot of good leather care products. It's Gold Class is a big line that's very trusted for interior, luxury interior. And then of
Even
course
exterior. I think every single one of my customers has a bottle of Quick Detailer in in their
yeah,
car that they wipe their car down with.
yeah. And then you've got price points. So here's the other realistic thing, right? You have different budgets for different folks, and we want to give them awesome products based on their budget. And so someone may only want to spend $10 for something, and someone else say, hey, I'll pay 25 if I get more for it. And so we're going to give solutions to different budgets, different skill levels, that kind of a thing. And so over time, to your point, you do end up with sometimes what can be an overwhelming amount of choices. And that's your trade-off. I'll tell you if you start looking at our labels, we're consolidating some of the look so that our sub brands won't look as separate, as different. And we're trying to simplify that shopping experience a little bit. It's going to take years to roll out the changes to all the different items. But we do understand that it can be overwhelming. We're doing our best to kind of pull it back and simplify, but you can't make everyone happy. Some people want the variety. Some people want simplicity. You can't do both, right?
And that's probably, that was something that we were talking about before we started the live. Was just with Meguiar's being so big. I mean, all over the world. What are some of the pros and cons that come with that?
How much time do we have? So I'll say this, pros. We have, over 100 years of experience and knowledge to pull from, right? That's got to be the top. We have a trusted name. I would say Meguiar's is universally, if you're going to look at all the brands out there, there are more people that say, when you pick up a bottle of Meguiar's, at least it's going to do what it says. Like we don't bat 100%, but we're awful close. And I think we are very trusted for delivering on our promises, right? And I think that gives us an opportunity to try things and to try out fun things from time to time because we just have so much brand power, right? I love the fact that we have so many fans and like things like this, like reading the comments, seeing familiar names, interacting with people at car shows, at the open garages. I love that. I never in a million years growing up thought I would be able to, for a living, work at Meguiar's. Like Ford and Meguiar's were two brands that I was obsessed with starting as like a teenage boy. And the fact that I got to work with both of those companies in my life is like unbelievable. I feel so blessed. So cons or pros, I guess I would round out by just saying we have a lot of technology, we have a lot of knowledge, a lot of passion and scale. So we're able to launch sometimes things, because of our scale, because we can get distribution in so many stores that there's certain types of manufacturing that we do that are very complex. And a small brand, they're not going to spend $150,000 for a different mixer, to produce product, right? So sometimes there's benefits there. The downsides, because we are so large and we have so much distribution, sometimes the standard for how much a product has to sell is very high. And it can make it difficult on the flip side to do the really tip of this, we call it tip of the spear, like the very niche type of a product that the hardcore enthusiasts would know about, but frankly, Wash Plus. You are like, that stuff's amazing. The average consumer is not going to touch that. And we can't sell 10,000 bottles a year and justify the amount of time and effort and all the different things that go into logistically creating and supporting it. So that's the biggest drawback, is that I would say the one other thing is, and this is a pro and a con, but it makes my life hard. Regulatory. We hold ourselves to a standard. I would be comfortable saying it's the highest standard in the industry when it comes to the safety of our chemistry and our products. We don't just look at the law. Our legal department says, in 10 years, where do we think the law is going to be? And sometimes we're holding ourselves to the maybe future law of what might happen. And so there are things like the fluorochemistry that are not available in our toolkit. And that makes it hard. It can be really tough. There are products on the market today, I'm not going to name names, big brand names that don't meet all the regulatory requirements, and they just get away with it. We can't do that. We have to cross every T and dot every I. And so the upside is, as a user, for me personally, like health-wise, I know the products that we're making are as safe as they can get. So there is that peace of mind, because I'm touching a lot of chemicals, right? And my dad has Parkinson's, and probably got that from his time in the Marine Corps, and he was at Camp Lejeune. There's like a known thing where the water was contaminated and all that.
My dad was there too.
Yeah. So I'm like very aware of those things. And so pro and con, it makes my job harder, but it also is an upside for users that you can count on us having very safe products. And if it's even questionable, we're not going to use it. So those are some pros and cons, I guess.
Awesome. We talked a little bit about M888 earlier, and I actually was wrong when I wanted to ask you this question, because I had said M888 was available internationally before they brought it to the US, and you actually corrected me because it was a completely different product. What was that coating that was international?
So there was something called, or there was M188, actually. It goes way back in time. Not a particularly great product. It was, that at this point probably came out almost 15 years ago.
So is this like the 8th version of that?
Well, we skipped a few, but the original was 188. It came in a very fancy box and all these things, but it was, at the time, the decision was to sell it only in an Asian market, because that kit was very over the top, and it was for a type of user that we didn't think existed in the US at that time. Now, I wasn't here for that. I maybe would have had a different opinion, but so it was considered too specialty and too expensive for the US.
Okay.
They then came out with 688, so there was some skips.
Okay. Why the 88?
I have no idea. Sometimes the numbers, there's a reason, and sometimes there's not really a reason.
Let's roll the dice, and it landed on 88 twice. So.
It did. So 688 was out there. It was an okay coating, but that also is probably about a 10-year-old product at this point, if I'm guessing. I worked on a 788. Now, that was the first true coating to come into the US market. And that was around 2018, 2019 that was supposed to launch. I told you a little bit before we jumped on here. I have never seen more things go wrong that were out of your control from a supply chain logistics standpoint. Like, the bottle we were going to use suddenly became unavailable right before we were going to produce. So then we got a different bottle, but then the orifice reducer, the little thing that goes inside that changes the rate of the dripping, that wasn't available. So then we finally find a different cap that was available, but now that bottle wasn't available. It was a different size thread. And so it took us a year and a half of these weird issues. And then the pandemic happened, and it got to a point where I left when I went to Harbor Freight. My boss was like, "What do you recommend?" I was like, honestly, I would not even, I feel like the world.
God has said it's not
God
our time.
has said, no, just don't. So 788 was interesting because it was in between 688 and 888, both number wise, but also kind of technology and application. So it actually had like that very unique long window for wipe off that we have with 888, but it was totally unrelated chemistry. It was just dumb luck that it kind of ended up there. But we used, the only thing that was in common was this idea of using an oil. I'll just use a simple term, an oil for the solvent. So it did have a really nice working window, but it wasn't super durable. It was about a year to 18-month coating. But it's just very easy to use. It was a good like enthusiast grade coating. Great for that.
So what would you say the durability is on 888?
So 888, here's another drawback to big company. We call it a multi-year coating.
I was gonna say, because nowhere do you guys actually say X amount of years.
So here's why. Legally, our threshold to make a claim is unbelievably high. I have to literally document when it says since 1901 on the bottle. I have to justify that and prove it every time. That's how hardcore they are. Okay, and so I'm not joking. We're very serious about not making false claims. It's like every last word is being reviewed by legal, and I have to provide justification, lab-backed justification for those things. So to do a justification when there's so many variables in the world, you're in Arizona versus you're in Minnesota versus Florida, you applied it correctly. It's brand new paint. It's 5-year-old paint that was already heavily oxidized. All those variables played such a role in the durability that I couldn't get legal on board with giving it the same types of claims that are made out in the industry. I don't know where you stand on this, but the 7, 9, 10, 11-year claims, I mean, that's what
we all know they won't last that long.
Right.
But no one keeps a car that long.
But here's what kind of, this is something that rubs me on a personal level. I hear some people say, well, Meguiar is like, you should be, you should be innovative, you should be honest, you should do these things. But then we come out that is honest. We come out and we be super honest. And then people are like, oh, well, I'm not even going to try that because this one says it lasts 9 years. It must be better. And I'm like, well, honestly, when we developed 888, that was a multi-year process. And we put it through 3M's weather centers around the world. We literally sent samples to multiple. 3M is actually that has the second largest weather testing facilities in the world out of every government, every company, everything. We're huge experts. And so we validated at least 2 years minimum durability where it still performed. And that was our threshold. So that's the other thing is, what does a 7-year coating mean? Does that mean that there's still something there at 7 years? Or does that mean that it's functioning at 90%, 60, 50, 30, 10? What does that mean? This industry does not have a standard, if we're honest, at all when it comes to coatings. There's so much nonsense and so much over-promising when it comes to coating. So all of that to say, because we can't control all of those things, we said, look, we're going to say it's at least 2 years, but if you take care of this, it is meant to compete with certified pro coatings all the way through. I got my hands on everything. When I developed 888, we had lab samples of every certified coating that was on the market. Top stuff. Let's just say that. And we were very confident that 888 was as good or better at hydrophobics, at application, at gloss, at slickness, the receding contact angle. That's a whole nother topic we should talk about. This stuff we bought cars, just beaters, to put the coatings on and put them through 100 car washes a day. We drove it through Minnesota winters, for years. Like, we put it through the ringer to make sure that we were very confident about that coating, because we were late. We were late to the game in the US, right?
Why don't you guys talk about all of that? Because I feel like that would validate.
It would.
Like, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Like, Let that
So
stuff speak for itself.
a couple things happened. One, the product right before it was kind of ready to launch, I left. So it was bad timing of transition of people. And so then the pandemic happened. And frankly, this going back to supply chain, big company, there was so much that had to get addressed from a supply chain perspective that it basically just didn't get any love for that crucial initial time after it launched, because there was so many challenges going on with getting enough bottles, getting enough caps, getting like keeping the business moving, because the sales were through the roof. Number of people at home detailing their cars during the pandemic was insane. um, and so frankly it kind of didn't get the amount of attention it deserved. um, I I think we are going to be making a second push for 888, taking
A
it out of
second push or a second version?
well, maybe both. But but to start with, the kit the kit is probably not the right approach at this point in time. So we're going
Okay.
to take it out of the kit. We're going to have a better price point. We're going to separate the applicators. It has a very unique applicator, so you can buy that separately and get one bottle of juice and then have several applicators and all that kind of stuff, and be much more competitive on price. I think that will help. Um, but I will say that like 888 has got to be one of the most underrated. I know hybrid paint coating I say is the most. 888 is a phenomenal coating. I just don't think it got a fair shake. I think there are people that used it to promote their own brands in
In
dishonest.
doing reviews, yeah.
I won't name names, but there's someone that disappointed me immensely when it came to that. Um, and I don't think it got a fair shake. It's a very unique product, and I think that the fact that you can go out and apply 888 in the direct sun and not get a high spot, name another pro coating that can do that.
Now how can you see it? That's the issue.
But I mean, it's truly unique. It's a different approach to a pro grade coating. Now the other thing too is, what has the industry decided? If the public can buy it, it's not a real pro coating, right? That's what basically the saying is now. So I think also people dismiss 888 because it's available to the public, but that doesn't mean that the performance isn't on par with pro grade certified coatings. But if it's that easy to apply, the reason we made it available, it would be dishonest to say, oh, you have to come pay money to take a class to learn how to apply this coating that like somebody that's never applied a coating in their life could apply with no problem. It just didn't make sense. And I think that actually kind of hurt us because people assumed it's a consumer grade coating because it's available to consumers.
Well, you guys, isn't there verbiage on it that says professional?
Yeah, I mean, it's professional grade performance.
But that might even scare
Consumer,
some people.
yeah, but it's consumer friendly.
Mhm.
But the problem is it kind of hurt us both ways, I think, because I think a lot of professionals dismissed it without trying it and said, well, that can't be a real pro grade coating because you can buy it on Amazon.
Well, and if I could be devil's advocate here for just a second, when
Yeah,
you've got a product called Ultimate Ceramic Coating, that's a spray bottle, and it's more like a ceramic sealant, and then you've got M888 that, yes, it does say ceramic coating, but there's not like blasted terminology across the label ceramic coating. That might be confusing to entry level users.
yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. That's just because when I saw Ultimate Ceramic Coating and I tried it, personally, I didn't get it. And that's where I was really excited to talk with you about, like, what am I missing about
Yeah.
this, and like what made you guys go with Ultimate Ceramic Coating for that product?
So that's a good one to talk about. Two key things I'd point out. One, the first couple of batches, producing it at scale, the way that product is made is the secret sauce. So how do I say this? Most coatings, right, are have no water in the bottle, of course, because they're moisture cured. So when you apply a traditional ceramic coating, the moisture in the air is activating and catalyzing and plays a role in starting the curing process. So when you open your bottle, it's the exposure to the atmosphere, to the oxygen, to the air that is bringing moisture in and starting that curing process, right? Ultimate ceramic coating is taking pro actual ceramic coating material and finding a way to put it into beads within water. The reason it's in a just hear me out. The reason it's in a sprayer
Beads
is that,
within water.
yes, so it is actual ceramic coating in little itty bitty microscopic beads inside water. When you spray it on the surface, if you watch the video about how to use it, it talks about how you spray it from like 3 inches away.
Yeah.
And then you don't spread it, you work it into the area. The reason is that you're literally popping the bubbles, which exposes it to the water, which causes the catalyst to start to cure. So ultimate ceramic coating is, in my opinion, the most innovative chemistry of any coating ever launched.
That's
No
a
one
high
else has
claim.
done that. I don't think anyone could even come close if they tried. The guy who made it, well, many people worked on it, but one of the guys has 2 PhDs in emulsion chemistry. And it is so advanced that, frankly, when we first manufactured it, the manufacturing was not producing at the same quality level on our first couple batches that we were able to do in the lab. And so there was some learning on how to make sure that the batch that you're picking up on a shelf in a bottle was doing what we were seeing in the lab. I'm very confident that the bottles that are being produced for the last many months are all matching lab grade because we improved process and the machinery that's used. But it's very complex chemistry because normally if you had water in the bottle, it's a sealant, right? Like if
Yeah.
you think about hybrid ceramic detailer, if you think about all these other products in retail that call themselves coatings, that's another thing I'd love to talk about. Everyone else gets a free pass on their calling everything ceramic coatings in a spray bottle, but they aren't coatings, they're sealants. We at least were honest. Everything hybrid ceramic never says coating on it, ever. You'll never see the word coating mixed with hybrid ceramic, not to date, because those are sealants. And we were very honest about that, right? We use,
Customers just read ceramic and they interject that
yeah.
coating in their
But like
mind.
we led with hybrid as a qualifier to take it down a notch to say this is not a ceramic coating. It's got properties of ceramic. There's SiO2, there's chemistry that's going to mimic a ceramic coating, but it's obviously much easier and quicker to put on, right? But we said it very differently. Ultimate ceramic coating, those first few bottles, one, it came out in the winter, and the one thing that can get you is if it's super cold, that type of chemistry has a harder time curing. And so if you were to do it right now today, you'd have no problems whatsoever. Remember when, I don't know if I want to name drop brands, but whatever. It's not really a bad thing. Cerakote, when they launched their coatings, they got so much flack. Well, a big part
Because of the cure time or the cure temperatures.
right. But in fairness, there is some truth to that. And so they launched in the winter, as we did, with a chemistry that's not winter friendly. And there is truth to that type of chemistry. Now, I know they've made changes since and they've fixed kind of their issues, but there is actually truth to what they're saying. They weren't just full of crap about that. And same with the ultimate ceramic coating. That is a full-blown coating. And actually, if you liked hybrid paint coating, there is shared technology. So the coating itself that's left behind is actually very much shared with what hybrid paint coating was in an aerosol, but total different delivery method. And
I'm
so,
still hung up on beads in water.
so okay, think of a bottle of salad dressing. Have you ever
Yeah.
looked in like a bottle if it sits in your of like Greek dressing or
Uh-huh.
Italian, and you see the circles of like oil and
Yeah.
the separation of oil and water, right? Well, when you really shake that, some of those, well, first of all, they'll become more consistent, and then it almost becomes more milky. You're actually seeing you're making those little beads of oil much smaller, and you're kind of mixing it all together, right? Well, ultimate ceramic coating, you're taking actives, you're taking the coating itself, and then you're shearing it, and you're making it into itty bitty little beads, and then you're putting it inside of water. But it doesn't touch the water until you push it with a towel into the paint. It breaks the beads, that then exposes it to the water, which then starts the cure process, which is
Okay.
totally
So the
different.
cure process doesn't even start until you start leveling it.
Bingo. So that's another example of where people jump to a lot of conclusions, and it kind of frustrates me sometimes because people, assume the worst. But in reality, it's like if they knew, back to the conversations, big company, big legal, we aren't calling it a coating if it's not a coating. I'll tell you that right now. So that chemistry is actually one of the most advanced, if not the most advanced there is, period. It's just, it's nuanced, it's different. And we were trying to innovate, and everyone's like, oh, I want more innovation. Okay, well, here it is. Nah, and then they discount it.
Well, because it felt like any other ceramic sealant, but like I struggled with streaking.
Here's why.
And that's why, explain to me how I can get past that issue with streaking.
Yep. So if you take that product and you use it because you think it's just like, ultimate ceramic detailer,
warp it in, yep,
you're gonna hate it because you're not breaking it down, and you're not actually getting any of the coating aspect. It effectively functions like a sealant if you do that. Plus, it's a smeary mess. So here's how I think about it. If you were to take, let's say, hybrid ceramic detailer or ultimate quick wax and spray 2 to 3 times as much product on a hood as you should, what would happen? You would basically just have to wipe longer in order for it to kind of start to evaporate and work it in. You would eventually be able to flip the towel over and get a clean final surface and be fine, but it would just take you twice as much wiping, right? If you treat ultimate ceramic coating like that, you will have no smearing, no streaking, no problems. It's so easy. You just have to wipe it about twice as long as you're used to with a spray sealant. That's it. It's that simple. And I've seen videos of particular people that seem to have agendas that sprayed it on and spread it as gingerly as humanly possible, and then said, oh, it didn't cure. Well, yeah, you spread it, you didn't work it into the surface. If you read the directions, it's very clear about what it says to do. And if you just spray it on like it's glass cleaner or something and then wipe it off, it never got a chance to break and start to cure. It's intentionally staying wet longer because that catalyst needs that 20 or 30 seconds to do its thing, to bind to the surface. So there's a lot going on. This is not just...
So wash plus failed, but ultimate ceramic coating is a success. I feel like that's maybe too much science for the average Joe, but yet...
Yeah. And I'll be honest,
maybe people don't see the streaks. Maybe they don't have softbox lights like me that I'm like, oh my God, that's a bad streak,
I want you to try it again. Well, actually, how old's your bottle too? Did you get it like when it first came out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can either send you one or pick one up, whatever you prefer. But if you try a brand new produced bottle, you will get a completely different experience. It's
I'll have to revisit
the amount of active that we're able to get to cure out and work on the surface is way higher now than in the first batches. Now,
don't hate me. I'm pretty sure I gave away that bottle because I was like, I struggled.
But try that. Try to just literally wipe it about twice as long as you normally would.
I remember you saying that, and I'm pretty sure I watched your videos prior to doing it to make sure, because I knew going into it, it had a unique application.
Yeah, it could be it's just frankly
I think it was just an older bottle.
Yeah,
it was one of the first ones.
I was not super happy with where it was at.
I have to revisit that.
It varied a little bit bottle to bottle too.
So I know you guys don't have like exact durability, but what do you guys see out of ultimate ceramic coating durability wise?
You should get a year. You should get a year out of it.
And is that a year with neglect or a year with properly maintaining it with your soaps and detailers and stuff?
With no boosters. So that's the other thing. Okay, so when other brands, it varies how people make their claims about durability. When we say durability, we're saying unaided in terms of boosters, because that's not actually lasting that long. You're just hiding it, right? So we're just saying with regular normal washing. So if you were to just wash it every 2 weeks for the life of it and not neglect it, that's the number one thing that kills coatings, by the way, is just letting dirt and pollen and things sit and bake to it. So if you're just washing it with normal car wash, you should get a year, and you might get more out of ultimate ceramic coating.
Okay.
Especially a fresh bottle right now.
Hopefully all of you guys are just as motivated as I am to maybe revisit some of these products, because I have a brand new bottle of M888. I know you guys sent me one actually after I was struggling. I was
Yeah.
talking, I can't, was it you? I don't know if it was you or not. Someone from Meguiar's actually messaged me after my initial video where I was like, this coating hates me.
Yeah.
And they literally had like taken a screenshot of the bottle, zoomed in, and they saw, oh, your
Yeah.
seal
It
wasn't
was
right. And
it was actually one of our chemists.
I was like, I didn't even notice that. And you guys sent me a brand new bottle. So I'm going to revisit, I'm going to do like a whole video on the coating and hopefully have a much better experience.
Yeah.
But
It
I
bummed
can
me out
say,
when that
like
happened.
7 months in, it looks fantastic. And
Yeah.
it's on the side that gets hit with a ton of dirt and stuff. So,
I
yeah.
mean, I legitimately know for a fact that 888 can last 2+ years on a wheel on a daily driver, no problem. One coat. I mean, I know this. Like I tested it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw my videos when I was doing YouTube for a little while. Even
Bring it
hybrid
back,
paint.
by the way.
I just don't have time. It was fun. I enjoyed doing it. I just have too much going on in life. I
For
just don't
those of
have.
you that haven't checked it out, it's MK's Deep Dives. And you had some fantastic content on YouTube. You should maybe
Well,
revisit
thank
that if
you.
you have a weekend off.
It
It
was.
was some good
I
stuff.
loved it, but it was taking. I'm an amateur video editor, and so the setup, the planning, the shooting was one day, and then another day of editing. So it's like my whole weekends were shot when I was doing those videos, and I just don't have the time. We've got stuff going on. I can't devote that much time. I respect the heck out of you and other creators because I know that it's a lot of time.
Well, before we transition to some of these questions from all of our guests, it would behoove me to not bring up our sponsor for this show. So we're going to really quick have just a quick break for a sponsored ad from Thor. So stick around because we've got all of your questions that we're going to answer from Markus. We'll be right back.
Hello, Jamie here from the House of Rags. Sorry for interrupting your scheduled Thor Media program, but hey, we got stuff to talk about. And what I'm talking about today is the Jobber 365. This is the ultimate all-around job towel. Interior, exterior. You can use it to clean your leather, vinyls, plastics. You can use it to clean your nav screens, your sensitive areas, even your gauge clusters, because it's 365 South Korean microfiber, making it super high quality. Like I said, it's got the plush side, it's got the low pile side. So super versatile towel for your auto detailing needs or general cleaning, household, that kind of deal. The Jobber is literally, that's why it's called the Jobber. It can do it all. Oh yeah, don't forget to use your host promo code to save some change, support the show, support the channel, and get you some high quality South Korean microfiber. Back to the show.
Jamie always coming up with some good content for you guys. But seriously, they've got some pretty amazing microfibers.
Yeah,
They're going to
nice.
be coming out with, but I've actually fallen in love with their microfibers. So, all right, we have some questions from all of our guests that we've starred. We're going to try to answer a few. Markus, when are the best sales besides Black Friday for detailing?
Oh, well, okay. So this is something that's like one of those tricky back end things that people don't think about. But with Meguiar's, we use a distributor model. So we sell our products at the same normal price to someone that's either a retailer or a professional distributor. So when they do their sales, we don't really have control over that. So it's like, we sometimes we'll do, some type of promotion to our distributors, but at the end of the day, they decide how to carry that through to the end user. So there's a lot of different awesome, retailers that will do their big sales, but we don't really directly control that because of our distribution model.
Okay.
So that's, I know, not a fun answer, but.
Steve wants to know, is the formula for Gold Class shampoo still mostly the same from the 90s?
Oof, this is a good, timely question. Yes, right now it
But
is. However, it's totally possible.
are we getting a hybrid Gold Class?
No. Obviously, so Gold Class Car Wash is one of those staples.
Yeah.
We all know this. It's probably
Every one
one
of my
of
customers is like, Gold Class,
yeah,
that's what I wash
yeah.
my car with.
It's probably the most known car wash on the planet, right? But it has mostly stayed the same for a very long time. And I'm aware of that. And so there's a possibility that maybe we could make some light tweaks. Now, I don't want to mess with, if it's not broken, don't fix it kind of thing, right? And I respect that and I appreciate that very much. But I also understand that other consumer behaviors like ceramic coatings and things like that have changed over the years. And I know that a lot of people freak out about the word conditioner on Gold Class. So it's possible that we might address that in the relative near future.
I know that I've had a lot of customers ask me, do I recommend Gold Class to maintain a ceramic coated vehicle with? What would be your response for that?
100% fine on a coating.
It doesn't leave too much residue?
No.
Because that's always been what I've heard from other people. That is
Yeah.
very residue heavy and it can clog or alter the hydrophobic performance.
Yeah, that's just a myth, straight up.
Okay.
It's just straight up a myth. The idea of it being a shampoo and conditioner, when that came out, it was, I mean, I was not around with the brand officially at that time, but I think it was more of getting people to understand what it did. And people thought, okay, shampoo and conditioner for my head does these things, and it leaves a nice premium clean finish. That was what it was trying to convey. I think the idea that it's leaving a durable clogging type conditioner was never the intent, right?
Do you recommend people use your wash and wax for ceramic coated vehicles? Is it safe for ceramic coated vehicles? Because that's the number one, like all my customers use that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so hybrid ceramic wash and wax is designed, anything hybrid ceramic is designed to be at the level of a proper ceramic coating in terms of the hydrophobics, so that it doesn't go backwards for whatever you have. So if you
but just the standard wash and wax is what I'm saying, not the hybrid ceramic.
Well, I was going to cover both.
Okay.
Bonus information. So if you want to do a wash and wax and you're wanting to do some kind of a boost, then the hybrid is what I recommend. If you used ultimate wash and wax, for example, the reality is, yes, there is something in there that can be left behind. Is it at the level of hybrid ceramic? Is it going to boost your hydrophobics? No. Also, if your ceramic coating is actually still strong and functioning, there's no way that it's really sticking to it. Right?
So it's kind of wasted.
Yes.
On a ceramic coated vehicle.
Wash and everything else. But like at the end of the day, if your coating is still very strong, usually the first 6 to 12 months of most coatings, right? It's going to most likely reject a product like that.
Okay. Steve wants to know, do products go through scheduled reviews or revisions after they've been released?
Well, it kind of depends. So we do monitor frequently, like we do what's called a retain. So every time we're producing a batch of a product, we retain and test samples to look for quality concerns and things like that. In terms of kind of just looking again at a product, is it due for an upgrade? Obviously we've got some that are 20 years old that haven't changed much.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
It depends. And so like hybrid ceramic, I'm going to expect anything that's ceramic to be updated more frequently, because that's meant to be a cutting edge leading technology type product. A carnauba wax, it's a classic, people go to it because it's old trusty. They like the concept of a warm, glowy carnauba. It's easy to use. We're not going to make a lot of changes frequently to that. So it kind of depends on the type of product. But we do monitor things. And then also we read every day. The whole company gets a daily feedback report. So we have a whole solutions hub. That's what we call it. And it's like a call center. You can email, you can live chat, you can call in, and all feedback, complaints, praise, concerns, questions, all of it is logged, every last thing. And it gets built into a report and it's sent to the whole company. So I don't care if you're product creation, if you're in the lab, if you're in accounting, everyone gets to see what the people are experiencing with our products, good and bad.
Wow. Now, do you actually read it?
I'm going to be honest, not every day.
I was going to say, that'd be like, they hate it still. Or you got some fangirl out there. Becky, she's just in love with you.
If I have 5 hours of meetings to start my day, I probably skip it that day. If I have that extra 20 minutes in the morning, I will read it because there's good information. I'll see trends and be able to sometimes identify a concern. If I see, okay, consistently people are experiencing this, then that's an indicator that I should take a closer look.
Okay. All right. Going down these questions. Steve had a lot. Yes, Steve did have a lot of questions for you. We'll get to, he said, something I've experienced at Dormant's was that a lot of people there were surprisingly not car people. Do the employees at Meguiar's tend to be detailers?
Yeah. I mean, you have some people in certain functions that are very far removed from product. For example, like there's some administrative functions, folks like that, very technical people in finance, things like that. We get them. So when new employees come in, everybody goes through a 2-day process of learning about the history of Meguiar's. We walk them through all the way to the family, all the family members' names, kind of the whole thing from the original little buckets to where we are today. And we're very serious about the culture concept. And that's because we know that that's our sweet secret sauce, right? Is the authentic understanding of the products. Mm-hmm. So is everybody a detailer? No. There are definitely people there who are not experts at car care, but at least and here's the other thing we do. Once a month, we have a day where we're encouraged to bring in our vehicles, and we bring in donuts, and everyone goes down and gets a few hours. Yep, free donuts. And
I want to work at Meguiar's. I love donuts.
Yeah, it's the biggest perk.
That sounds awesome.
And we go down and work on our cars. So you can come in there and say, if you're the lady in finance or you're the guy that's in business supply chain that doesn't have a detailed background, you can come in and ask me, a scientist, a trainer, a Mike Stoops, a Mike Pennington, those legends, hey, teach me how to do this. And we do that very hands-on.
That's freaking awesome. Way to go, Meguiar's, cultivating a positive work experience. David Boyce says, your product, all-purpose cleaner, is it safe for Alcantara, carpets, upholstery, and leather? And how engine cleaning can I use it on that? I'm going to assume he's saying, I don't really know what he's saying there. But that is a good question for interiors, because I have seen some people cause chemical burns with your APC on the interior with certain plastics. Because some of these trucks, they have a plastic coating on the doors. GMs, you use that at too high of a dilution ratio, you're going to take that plastic coating right off. Yeah. What's the best use for the APC for interiors? Is it safe?
So a couple things. Obviously, per previous conversations, we have more than one APC. So we have
green stuff.
Yeah, the green stuff, the D101, which is kind of our original staple, whatever. Yep. There are many different dilution ratios that we recommend on the bottle.
I'd say at least 10 to 1.
I would start there to understand how much you should dilute it to use it on certain surfaces. That said, as you just touched on, especially GM interiors and many other newer interiors, there's more and more sensitive surfaces.
Yeah.
So we always recommend, when you're unfamiliar with a vehicle, to do a test spot with a diluted out, version of the product before you go smearing it all over the whole thing. I personally have never had a problem using all-purpose cleaner interiors because I use that approach. I start with a 20 to 1 or something like that, and I'll up the game if I need it for a stubborn, issue. But I'm usually working with 10 to 1, and sometimes I'll go down to a 4 to 1 or maybe even a 2 to 1 for something very extreme. But I think that's the key. Pay attention to dilution ratios. Pay attention to where you're working on. Alcantara, I would not recommend our all-purpose cleaner for that.
It would leave a lot of residue on it, make it stiff.
I wouldn't recommend that. Generally speaking, you can just use warm water, but sometimes you have more serious stains. We might have something coming in the future that would be fantastic for that. I can't confirm or deny that.
You're killing me here, Marcus.
And then carpets, a lot of people use it, but
you actually have a 2-step system for your carpets that works pretty good.
But it's complicated, right? It's, there's pH involved, and what is the stain? Do you know what kind of stain it is? There are certain stains that an all-purpose cleaner is fantastic for, and there are certain stains that are not fantastic for. You can set a stain. So there's actually a protocol that you should use when approaching unknown stains on interiors. So I would say it depends. Legal would love me for that. And you have to make sure you know what you're working on, because using an alkaline product can potentially set certain stains. And then for upholstery, it depends. There's certain cloth and stuff like that that you can use in APC. I would either use an extractor or make sure you kind of come back with a towel and try and remove as much residue as you can when you're done. And leather, that's another one where it's like, if you're going to use it on leather, it's going to be very diluted, and I would definitely follow it with a conditioner when you're done.
And I would definitely spray it on your towel and not the leather first, because you're gonna get those drips.
100%. Generally speaking, I would not recommend using APC for leather. In the hands of a very seasoned pro, can you get away with it in certain circumstances? Yes. However, there are better products for the job that are smarter and safer to use.
It might remove the coating on the leather.
Yeah. But again, if you dilute it out 20-to-1, probably okay. However, use those appropriate test spots and dilutions. And again, you're dead right. Spraying straight cleaners onto leather is almost always a no-no. There's very few products that you can safely spray straight onto leather.
Without, and if you do work really, really fast, before it drips.
Exactly. And then engine cleaning. Yes, you can use that on engines. A lot of people use
straight. Use it straight. Fire. Door jams, tires.
Yeah,
mats.
That's when the 4-to-1 comes into play. Is for like engines, tires, stuff like that.
Yeah. What is the pH on that, by the way?
Oof. It's definitely alkaline. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Like it's 12 or 13, I want to think.
It's going to be right around there. Probably high 12s is my guess off the top of my head. 12.6, 12.8, something like that.
Chris says, is there any cross-pollination with 3M on the 3M branded products, or do Meguiar's and 3M operate as independent entities?
It's a great question.
Because 3M bought Meguiar's years back.
Yeah, so in 2009, they bought Meguiar's. We are a separate legal entity, and we have our own lab. We have many aspects of our business. We have our own separate functions and people. We share some things with regulatory. We share some things with supply chain, some things with stuff like that. Like the product side of things, we have our own team. We make our own products. We test our own products. That said, we've done a couple projects where we use their lab and their resources. There are some very intelligent people at 3M, experts. They have these resources that are available in the lab, people that are phenomenal. So sometimes I would fly back to St. Paul, where 3M is located, and spend a week there and work with these folks, these great folks in their weather center, for example, and they help us do weather testing development. And then also, like with 888, that was actually the first time there was a true joint development. They made a coating as well, and theirs is definitely different, but there is base technology that is common, but they went a different path. Theirs does not have like the near infinite wipe off. They went a more traditional fast curing coating. But there was some joint technology that was developed. But if I were to give you those two bottles and not tell you they're the same, your application, you would have no idea they're related. You probably would notice that the end results share a lot of attributes, but they are different. Other than that, though, we're not sharing anything. I mean, they have their own labs. We're not even in the same division of 3M as, like, for example, all the collision shop products, all those compounds and polishes. We used to be, but we're actually in a totally different division. So we rarely even talk to those folks anymore. So we're very separate.
We've got some more questions that I want to ask, but this is actually kind of segueing me into a question that I wanted to discuss with you, which was paint correction. Your lineup hasn't changed much over the years, from your pads to your polishes. You've got your maroon, your yellow, your black pads. You've got your MT300 dual action polisher, which was actually the first polisher that I ever bought and used. I loved it. Right. You've got your D301, your D300, D301, D302, which is a great 3-step system. You've got your ultimate polishes, your ultimate compound, your your 100, I think your 101, your those types of polishes, but you don't have a ton out there other than that. Is there a reason for that? Is it just because they are just staples, you haven't had to modify them?
So M110 and the compound, and M210. I launched those back in, I think it was 2018 or 19. And those were all new abrasives, longer work cycle, less
No
dust.
dusting.
Yeah, easier wipe off, all that kind of stuff.
210 is awesome.
Yeah. And they were they were aimed at sensitive paints or for the highest possible gloss.
Okay.
And so those are very different than any other compounds or polishes that we have. Other than that, we've since done a 200. So we have a M200 that goes with M100 that launched a year ago.
Okay.
And then M300, which is an all-in-one. It's a ceramic all-in-one, like a heavy cleaner wax.
I haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, those are newer. It's called
Okay.
Solo all-in-one. And then from a pad perspective, big changes coming.
Okay.
Soon.
Okay.
I've seen the final. I signed off on the final artwork for all the new packaging this week.
Sounds like maybe Harbor Freight influenced you a little bit.
I mean, it's possible.
Or maybe you influenced Harbor Freight.
Yeah, or both.
Yeah.
So we will have some exciting major changes coming on that front in the probably by the end of the year.
Okay. Do you guys ever have any plans of revisiting like MT300 to update that? Again, I was scientific the scale.
So obviously,
like,
I now have a lot of experience doing polisher development.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed doing that when I was at Harbor Freight. So that's certainly on my radar to look at tools, accessories, all that kind of fun stuff is most definitely on the table.
I'm definitely going to be keeping my ear to the ground
Yeah.
at Meguiar's. Are we thinking maybe SEMA releases or even more futuristic?
Those are big projects, right?
Yeah.
That take a little bit longer, but this will be a very busy SEMA. We have.
Are you going to be there?
Oh yeah. That's all hands on deck, for SEMA at Meguiar's. I haven't.
Wait, this is the first SEMA for Meguiar's?
No. I'm saying it's all hands
I'm like,
on
what?
deck. I mean,
I was like,
yeah.
I've never been, but I'm pretty sure you guys have been there.
We actually have been at SEMA since the very first year of SEMA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Barry Meguiar is friends with the guy who started SEMA, and it was like in some tiny little convention center in Anaheim or something. So yeah, we have actually we moved our booth location. Were you there last year?
I've never been. This will be my first year.
Oh, well, shoot. So this is a fun topic, actually. It's kind of it's a pro and a con, and I'd love to see what people think in the chat. But because we've been at SEMA forever, we have extremely high ranking, if you will, on where you get to put your booth. So there's like a whole system about your tenure, and the longer you've been there, you get opportunities to have a better booth location, basically. Okay. And we've been there in Central Hall from the very beginning. In Central Hall, like there's so many halls. Like your mind is gonna be so blown at the size of SEMA. Like you can't walk the whole show and see it all in 5 days.
I've heard that I'm gonna need shoes and water and and also some sort of antibiotic, because I've heard the SEMA flu is a thing.
It is a thing. But all that to say, we are in Central Hall. Most of the detailing scene newly in the last few years is in North Hall. So it's kind of a bummer because we have what's considered one of the most prime locations in the whole show. But I think a lot of people have been missing our booth the last few years because they think that all the detailing brands are in North, and they're not. Mothers is another one that stays in Central Hall. There's another big brand that wants to be in Central Hall, but they don't have the tenure to get there. So we're in that Central Hall, and we have like the front and center spot. It's a big booth. You should definitely come by, and we can do interviews and all kinds of fun stuff.
I'm going to be over at the House of Rags booth and just wandering throughout, but I want to think the Thor booth is going to be, they were in one hall, and I think they're moving to another one, but I can't remember which one. I'll have to find out from Jamie and Eddie where they're going to be, because I'm going to try to connect with you if I can.
Yeah. We'll be there.
If I can find my way. I meant it to like do breadcrumbs or something like that. I am the worst with keeping track of where I'm at and like getting disoriented. So
Yeah. And if you need to get set up with anyone for interviews at Harbor Freight, I can help you there too.
cool. Good to know. My husband is watching.
Yeah, bring him.
I told you can. He says he's going to go to the car side of things, though, not really the
The car
detailing.
side. The whole place is the car side.
Well,
It's
like where
everything.
they actually like show the modifications and all of
Yeah,
that. Because I don't think
It's
he cares too
everywhere.
much about the detailing side of things. But
Well, have them come to our hall. Central Hall is where all the big like Holly and like all these hardcore original car brands. That's where you're gonna find.
I'm pretty sure he would salivate to hang out at Meguiar's. He was the one that actually turned me on to Meguiar's when I
Oh.
first married him.
So he's a good man, I can tell.
He is he is a very good man, but I think I quickly like pushed him out and was like, I got this, move over. So
Love it.
all right, as far as products, Jimbo wants to know, did you ever create a product that ended up being radically different from its intended use?
Well, I mean, obviously we talked a little bit about the hybrid ceramic wax was originally literally a wash and wax. That was the craziest, I would say, from where it started to where it ended up. There's no question. That's the weirdest transition of the technology. Other than that, let's see. I'm guessing what he means is like how it ends up getting used is different than what we intended. I would say
interpret it as you would like.
Yeah, fast finish was a fun one because that was for paint, but people used it on leather and other interior surfaces, and it was really good. It kind of accidentally ended up actually cleaning and protecting certain surfaces, and that was not intended at all.
Well, it had solvents within it, so yeah, it's gonna clean a little bit.
This isn't like super radical or that interesting, but if we go way back in time, we have a detailer called Last Touch. It's probably not all that exciting these days, but I was using that as a rinseless wash before that was even a thing. Like I was doing that 15 years ago, just kind of playing around, and I'm like, wait a minute, and I was using it instead of O&R because I hated the smell of O&R. I don't know, to my nose, like it smelled very chemically.
Yeah.
And that one smells like coconuts. So I remember using that way back when. What else? I mean, a lot of people use some of our compounds for like metal polish. That's a popular thing. It's not radically different, but.
Okay. Steve wants to know, is there any trade-off between ease of application and product performance?
Massively. Sometimes. You can really, like, when it comes to protection for paint, let's talk about paint. One of the most common levers where there's just unavoidable is going to be between durability and ease of application. The idea of streaking and smearing, heavy wipe off, dark spots, all that kind of stuff, that's usually directly tied to durability. And so, like if you want a more durable product, you're leaving more material behind, most likely. And, I'm simplifying, but and if that's the case, you have a higher chance of those issues, right? So when you have a simpler detailer that doesn't leave a ton of protection, there's usually less prone to have streaks, smears, or issues. Another one that's an interesting trade-off, slickness and hydrophobics. So this is a little known thing, but with most ceramic products in SiO2, when you actually go to the super high end of the spectrum of hydrophobics, it's usually not very slick with SiO2.
I've noticed that.
Yeah. And so there's this balance, right? Like, and I always talk about, it's the best way to look at it is not two sides, it's a Rubik's Cube, because there's just so many things you have to balance. Ease of use, application, durability, slickness, chemical resistance, cost, application style. Like there's so many different things that we have to look at.
Well, and that was something that I wanted to ask you because like the more I, being affiliated with the House of Rags, it has educated me on all of the different brands and techniques of detailing around the world. We put ourselves in a bubble here in the US and we just think that our products are the same throughout the world. And I've learned, Korea, Thailand, Middle East, those areas, maybe they're looking for more slickness. They
Yeah.
don't put as much on durability claims because they maybe have a better car culture where they're washing their cars more frequently. Whereas here in
Yeah.
America, maybe we want something, I don't have to wash my car for 2 years because I'm too busy to do it.
Yep. In
So
Asia, they love slickness. Like that's a huge thing. You know what they don't like? Fragrance. So they don't like new car smell. So in Asia, they actually view when you buy a new car, everyone in America says, "Oh, I love the smell of a new car." Well,
mhm.
you're smelling all these gases that are
Yeah.
off-gassing. They know that. They're apparently smarter than us. And so they actually don't like it. So there's like a whole different set of values of what people want in a product in different markets. It's very interesting, actually. So as a global company, sometimes it can be difficult because we can make a product that might perfectly resonate in one market and it may not resonate at all. So to your, earlier you're asking like, why didn't we have those first coatings in the US? At that time, those coatings were designed for those market uses and like aimed for their desires. And even, in fact, this is a fun thing. In parts of Asia, it's very common that certain countries or regions, people don't actually keep their products at home. They will have a locker at a garage and they will rent space in a locker and keep their products there. And they will go there and then detail at this place and use their products and put them back in a locker.
Huh.
So the way you put packaging together and the way that you message and everything was very different for some of those markets. And they wanted and needed different things. They weren't buying on retail. They might go to that shop and buy the stuff there and then store it there. Very interesting.
I didn't know that. I don't
Yeah.
know if Americans would do that.
Yeah.
We just throw it in the trunk of our car and hope for the
Yeah.
best.
The very rich ones these days, there's that new trend for like storing your cars at those like places with the car elevators. Have you seen
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I have.
But that's like what the creme de la creme, right? Not
Well, I mean,
us.
even Katiba, they did a video with the House of Rags, South Korean-based company, and they were showing videos of all the people. Like they go to these. It's kind of like the Bays concept. I don't
Yeah.
know if you're familiar with that, but you go and you rent a car wash bay, but it's got music and lights, and
Yep.
it's fun and engaging. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I want that here in America. Like, I would pay to go to that, even though
I
I can
know,
wash
right?
it at my house.
It'd be fun. I love
It's
that
like
idea
Fast and
too.
the Furious, but for moms, like totally
Yeah.
cool. Steve wants to know, what do you consider to be the most legendary product that Meguiar's has ever released and why?
Okay. I mean, first thing that comes to mind, I know this is probably not the most exciting product, but quick detailer. First of all, Meguiar's invented detailers. Little known fact. Like
I mean,
literally
they pretty much
invented
invented everything detailing.
the foam pad. Meguiar's invented the first foam pad.
Wow.
It was called the Woolless Wonder. We have one at the office, but it's literally crumbled down into dust because it's like 50, years old or whatever. We also invented the microfiber pad, which is pretty cool. There's several things that we've done, but I would say quick detailer. If you think about it today, how many products when you walk down the aisle are built off of the concept of a quick detailer? Spray waxes, quick detailers, waterless waxes, all of these things were derivatives of quick detailer. And that, enabling clay lube and just all these things. When you think about the impact on our industry, I would argue that quick detailer had a bigger impact than any other single product.
That's
It's changed. Like before, you had your only option was a full blown bucket wash,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then now be able to go to a car show and wipe the dust or a bird
Every
dropping.
car show I see someone has that. Just going to town.
Yep. Yep.
Either that or
So
Windex.
yeah. Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
I saw a guy this past weekend rubbing his entire paint down with Windex and paper towel, and I was like, oh my God,
Oh,
I have to walk away.
the
It
paper
was
towel.
brutal.
Ooh,
Uh,
yeah.
Conway wants to know, do you guys have a museum for people to go and kind of check out some of the old products that you've created over the years?
So we have an area at our office where we have actually like floor to ceiling artwork, like pictures of the original family, like in black and white, like mixing in the wash tubs, like original products.
Yeah.
And we have the Woolness Wonder and these old glass bottles. It used to be called the Mere Bright Polish Co. At one point. And so we have all these old bottles and artwork and pictures and a lot of really cool stuff at our office. I have a pretty cool collection as well. I don't really show it publicly. It was a lot of it was gifted to me from a really awesome guy that worked in our sales for like almost 30 years. And he had collected it over the years, and he was very nice and generous. And he gave me boxes of just stuff you cannot find. Really cool swag and old bottles and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of products from you guys over the last few years. And I mean, we didn't even touch on the pro detail line that you guys have, which I feel like a majority of us here, we kind of got our teeth wet, maybe just we sunk our teeth in with detailing with
Sure.
the pro detailer series. But you guys haven't done a ton of new stuff with that line the last few years. Maybe your iron and wheel remover, your bead booster, different things like that, your ceramic sealant. Do you guys have any plans on bringing new pro detailing products to market soon?
Yeah. Again, I think there was like a period of time where there was a shuffle in personnel, and we just didn't have anyone in place overseeing that some of the pro stuff. Plus, there was just a refocus of resources. COVID really put a lot of pause on a lot of projects. We are looking definitely at that stuff, and we are. I don't know if you've noticed, but we're updating the look on all of it. So
Yeah.
we had detailer line, which was obviously heavily like dilutables, all-purpose cleaners, degreasers, things like that. And then we had the mirror glaze line, which goes back to the beginning of time. And they're both pro, but very different, usually different types of users or use cases. You have body shop, refinishing, you have detailing, you have very different aspects, right? We have combined into just Meguiar's Professional. So everything will be reborn in new packaging with a common look to simplify the confusion of all the different bottles and brands. And there will be new products that will also come through, that will get sprinkled in. Sometimes we might find technology that comes first in a retail product, and then a version of that or some of that technology grows into the pro. Sometimes it's the other way around. A lot of times we start with pro, and that's kind of our race team, if you will, right? Where you do the cutting edge stuff, and then it maybe in a more easy to use format comes later for retail. So it kind of goes both ways. But yes, look for pro. Like I said, pads, lot of change, a lot of new coming. I'm looking at a lot of other stuff too. So there will be a lot of new things over the next few years there.
Possibly a rinseless wash?
That's always possible. That would be one of the ones, obviously we had D114, which a lot of people still think is one of the best rinseless washes that's ever been out there. Had the long dilution ratio, but great product. At the time, I think we were too early and it didn't hit our volume thresholds. It is something I want to look at again, though.
Slick Auto Styling did say, though, if Megs came out with a rinseless, I have a feeling we're going to start seeing a whole lot more paint correction claims.
Win-win, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's probably one of the difficulties, though, for you guys, is how do you educate so many people at so many different levels?
Yeah, it is. It's honestly a huge challenge. And we try and message in different channels differently. So you have a different demographic on YouTube than Instagram, than TikTok, than just our general webinar, So we're teaching in the pro channel where we're going into body shops or like detail centers or things like that. You're educating at a very different level than if we're talking to the first time user online or in retail, right? It is a big challenge to appeal to such a wide range.
So Dark Dragon said, what's the difference between the ultimate waterless and the ultimate ceramic waterless? And I know he put in a comment after, I understand there's ceramics as a difference, but as far as what you were designing those, was there a reason why you wanted to make a ceramic waterless versus the ultimate waterless?
Yeah. I mean, as we talked about earlier, people sometimes take labels extremely literally. Case in point being that because Gold Class says conditioner on it, people are afraid to use it on a ceramic coated car. And that's a great example of how you need to make sure that you're clear to your consumer about what you should use and when. Hybrid ceramic, everything in hybrid ceramic, again, the logic is it doesn't take any ceramic coating backwards is our goal. We want to make sure it's compatible on an actual ceramic coating or as a standalone product, which is unique, because there's two very different circumstances. But you can use that line in either way. Ultimate, again, is really just aimed at the most user-friendly plus a premium result. So is there a ton of variance? This is an example where there's not a ton of variance in user experience between Ultimate waterless wash and wax, because how much can you really change a waterless wash? Not a ton. You can dial them in. And we just made sure to, instead of using a polymer-based protection, that we're SiO2-based so that it is appropriate and compatible for the intended user. This is one of those ones that is meant to just be easier to understand and feel confident in how you're using it.
That's actually a great idea. Chris says there should be a QR code that links to a marketing/instruction video. That way you scan it at the store, you see what it does and how it works.
So actually, several of the products we launched in the last year have that.
Cool.
And everything moving forward, one of my personal things is that I'm going to put a QR code on everything where I think it makes sense. Now, there's some products that are just very basic. Like, do you need a QR code? I don't know.
For a wash mitt.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Great example.
Although there are some. Don't drop it on the ground.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. They find a way. But if we're doing kits in the future, expect QR codes on all those. Anything with multiple steps, we're definitely going to be doing the QR code. I think it's a great idea.
So I don't know how to say this guy's username. What'd you say? Anto. Can you talk about Bead Booster? I feel like it doesn't get much love.
Yeah, that's a great point. So M799 Pro Hybrid Ceramic Bead Booster was an interesting product because when we launched that, it was the first, that and M27 were the first hybrid ceramic items in Pro. And unlike hybrid ceramic detailer, which just comes at one dilution ratio, that's a detailer with, we call it a boosted detailer, meaning it leaves protection plus does light cleaning. M799 at full strength out of the gallon or the 32 is a sealant. So at full strength, it's a spray sealant. So it has pure protection at full strength. You would not use it like a detailer. So you would only use it on a clean car, right? And it's going to be more protection than hybrid ceramic detailer. But the trade-off is that you can't use it as a detailer, right? But then we have other dilution ratios for that as well. You can dilute it down a little bit and use it as a hybrid ceramic detailer type product, or dilute it a little bit further and use it as a waterless wash and wax, like a hybrid ceramic waterless wash and wax type product. So it's very versatile in that you can literally use that one concentrate 3 different ways, which is pretty cool. And I would agree, it does not get as much love as it should. And it's very economical when you consider the dilutability, what you can do with $7.99.
Slick wants to know, are you ever going to make a clear bucket?
Maybe.
I would buy that.
They're really expensive.
Why?
To manufacture. It's a different type of plastic.
I mean, chemical guys can do it for like $9 on Amazon.
Theirs isn't clear. It's
clear-ish. I would take clear-ish.
Yes. So they have a semi-transparent HDPE bucket. Now that's one thing. Now he's, I think, talking about more of like an acrylic, totally clear bucket.
They're $45 for one.
They're just expensive.
Well, they're food grade.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they are. But if you guys came up with a semi-transparent, clear-ish Meguiar's bucket, wash, whatever, with like
I agree.
lines on it that had like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gallons, I would totally buy that. And then put all your stuff in it. That could be the Black Friday special. Like that would be like your Christmas
You're
present to
hired.
me.
Look, you want to work on my product team? You're hired.
Don't tease me. My husband's like, what? It's
You got to move
happening.
to California though. Oof.
No, I don't want to commute. It's
No, no, you don't. But yeah, actually,
yes.
I agree. That's one of the fun ones that I would, that's on my list that I'd like to do. Hopefully I can find a way.
Yeah. Everyone says clear enough. Yo, that's
Clear enough. Okay, well, that's noted. Noted.
Will Megs come back out with M40?
M40 is still alive. M40 is
Okay.
out there. I think there were supply chain issues during the pandemic. Silicone was super hard to get and very expensive, and there were certain products that got put on hold and others were prioritized, but it is still around. It didn't get discontinued.
I had more questions that I wanted to ask you, but I feel like we have gone so long with this episode. I think we
Yeah,
just maybe need to do a second episode in the future.
it can be done.
I mean, because I wanted to talk about common mistakes that people use, have
Oh
when they
yeah.
use your products. What improvements or changes would you like to see in the detailing industry? I think honestly, we could definitely just do a second episode in the
Let's
future if you're down with it.
let's plan on doing something around SEMA time, either right before or right after, and we can talk about all those new products and stuff. That'd be fun.
That would be awesome. We'll set up
Yeah.
something and make sure you guys subscribe and hit the notify bell so that way you don't miss out on that future episode. Because maybe we could do it right after SEMA to talk
Yeah.
about all the stuff that you guys release.
Yeah,
I'll
there'll
be
be a
there.
lot
I'll put
to
my
talk
hands
about.
on it. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'll find you. We could do a live video.
Absolutely. At SEMA, let's do that.
Okay. We'll set it up. All right, guys. Well, we've been going for almost 2 hours. For those of you who have been here the entire time, hitting us with question after question, Steve, I'm talking to you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for your fantastic questions, and just being here tonight. Marcus, I couldn't thank you enough for sharing your expertise and all of your knowledge and the tips with Meguiar's. I'm really excited for what you guys have coming up this year. And if you guys are too, make sure you head on over to Meguiar's YouTube channel, hit their notify bell, so that way you don't miss any of their new products when they drop. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Next week, we're going to have my friend Carlos Serrano on. We're going to be talking a lot of interior detailing, answering you guys' questions, and maybe sharing some of his secrets to how he gets such high ticket dollar prices for his details. So make sure you guys tune in next week. But you guys have a wonderful evening. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over at the House of Rags. Have a great night.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Marcus.